There's a feeling that can never be described in words, in my opinion, in any language. And you know, I would say to anybody, you know, it's an experience that you've just got to go through.
Our dads were not actually sort of like in those rooms when we actually be our mothers giving birth. Do you think that maybe sort of like created a slightly, not too visible, you know, sort of like, you know, distance between, or, you know, that bond between ourselves and our dads? You know, or when you're there in the room, will that sort of like encourage you to be much more involved as a dad? Or it's sort of like connection, it's a connection that you'll have and that you'll embrace for the rest of your life?
Look, I think that any parent, when there's birth with a child, or any parent, father or mother, there is always a connection. What has changed tremendously, obviously, in our society or the country we live in is that the modernity and the access to a better way of life has allowed parents to go to their hospitals. I mean, I think that prior to this, fathers did not really go to the hospitals unless there was some sort of medical issue around it. So we're privileged to have that, and as the gentleman, as Muzi describes it, it's pure joy when you witness that. But I don't think it removes the connection. In my instance, for example, why I think I should have said this to you earlier, that my participation in my lives of my children is that I had a father. I grew up with a role model. He was always involved in our lives. I mean, that's why my father is cook for us, you know, dress us, take us out. We were always around him, you know, along with my mom. So that's influenced me that to be a participant to my children's lives. So obviously today you have better access to go to the ward and go in and see that your girl or boy being born.
Being born,
and
wonderful.
That's a tremendous opportunity.
So what actually the last words that you sort of like want to tell the young dads that are out there, you know, what are the activities that they should actually do, you know, just to create that vibe, that excitement, that connection, you know, that forever lasting bond with their girls, with their boys?
Thinking about my own dad and what he taught me, he was a quiet man, my father.
Yeah.
But he taught me that what you do is actually much more important than what you say.
Yeah.
And not that we mustn't talk to our children, we have to.
Yes.
But what we say has to be consistent with what we do over years and years and years and years. It's difficult to do. But it's a wonderful and almost a sacred responsibility.
How important is that? You know, that kind of, you know, what you do to your child in terms of, you know, the psychological part of it.
Well,
how imperative is that?
They learn language from us. They learn their behaviors from us.
Sure.
If you shout, if there's lots of shouting in the house, the children are going to learn to shout. If there's violence in the house, the children are going to learn violence. If there's love, understanding, and empathy in the house, that's what they're going to learn.
Wonderful. I wish we can actually continue with this kind of conversations, because I promise you, I know out there's thousands of dads who actually wants to know more of trying to find, you know, that kind of comfort zone to say, I want to be involved, but maybe my partner is sort of like pushing me out of the whole, you know, equation, because he feels that I'm not that fit, a dad, but I want to be part of it. But all what we actually can say to our listeners, you know, and viewers at home is that please just communicate with us. Just go to our website, www.mamas&papasmag.co.za. These three gentlemen, you know, Dr. David, you know, Rishdin and Muzi, will actually be sort of like part of our forum. For many of us, our pets are significant members of our family. However, when you bring a new baby home, how do you introduce the new bundle of joy to your pet?
Introducing a pet to a child is always a very difficult thing to do, and it should always be done in a very, very controlled environment. I think the thing to remember is it doesn't matter what pet you're dealing with, you can never trust it completely until you've got confidence around your kids. So my best advice would always be to do it with supervision for a very, very extended period of time before you can start trusting that pet around your child unsupervised.
You know, I think normal hygiene needs to be in place when you have an animal in the house. And just like you always should be washing your hands before you eat or before you drink anything or before you touch your face, you should be doing this with your pets as well. So if you've got pets, they shouldn't really harm you in any way. Obviously, the children shouldn't share the food with their animals. You know, obviously, I've seen kids going down and drinking out of the dog's bowl. The one thing that I must just say is that your dog should be dewormed regularly. So that's an important thing. And yearly, you should be taking your dog to the vet. And as well as that, just look out for things like tilia infections, which is ringworm, which is actually a fungus of the skin. And if the dog's losing hair in any place, let the dog be checked out by the vet.
As a vet, we always get asked what pets are good with kids, and that varies from owner to owner and child to child, depending what they want. Certainly your smaller dogs and cats, you can't go wrong. Bigger dogs, you've got to be careful, either because of aggression or just because of size, so be careful to choose your breed there. As far as your smaller mammals, you can't go wrong with your rabbits, your guinea pigs, your rats. Hamsters are always a little bit difficult because they are nocturnal, so they are more likely to bite when handled during the daytime with your kids. These days it's become very popular to get the kid a bearded dragon or a snake or tarantulas. Those are very difficult because they can be very finicky and they are likely to strike. They're more instinctive than your normal typical dogs and cats. It's important as a parent to realize the certain emotions that a dog can show. So if a dog ever approaches you front on, ears down, showing its teeth, it's more likely to show tendencies towards aggression, and in instances like that you must be more careful. A dog that is less aggressive and more defensive, more likely to be friendly, would always roll over, show its belly and approach you from the side. When sourcing a dog for your family and your kids, it's not that important where the dog comes from. So it can be from a rescue like the SPCA, it may be from a breeder as such as well. It's important on the type of dog and the age of the dog. So we want to get a dog that will be friendly with kids and raised with kids and less of a tendency for aggression. Dogs that come from the SPCA and that are a lot older, it will be very difficult to judge their temperament around the child without spending a lot of time investing in that behavior of that animal. With regards to pets in the family, I think it's important that every family has a pet, at least one, a dog or a cat, a hamster, a fish. I think it's important for the kids to build up those social bonds, and I think it's important for the parents as well. It gives them some free time with the kids to spend with these animals.
100 rand. 50, 100.
Nothing about becoming a parent is easy or cheap. Children can be a massive financial drain. Between nappies, dummies and cassettes, one needs to make financial provisions for your new lifestyle.
I think the first planning that we need to consider is around the mum. So if the mum is a working mother, will she get paid maternity benefits, or will the family be able to afford a single income? Then we have to look at what happens once the baby arrives. Will the mother go back to work, or will she be able to afford the cost of a nanny? Or is she going to consider options like working from home?
In South Africa, 4 months maternity leave is specified through legislation. The mother has to take off at least a month before she has her baby, and then, as I say, she can have up to 3 months afterwards. Now, that maternity leave must be given by her employer. It can be unpaid maternity leave. She can then go to the Department of Labour and she can apply for maternity benefits. And those are worked largely on a sliding scale depending on how long she's contributed to the fund.
Maternity leave is compulsory, but what that means is only the leave is compulsory. You are not guaranteed to get any payments. So if a company gives you 3 months maternity leave plus full pay, it's actually a luxury.
You know, there's no fixed amount that one can pin down because it depends on a number of factors. One of the factors is how much she contributes to the household income. Some women contribute very little, you know, their money is used to spend on themselves largely. In other households, you may find that the income is a critical part of the household. So if she's going to stop working in order to have a child, it's very difficult to say, how much should she have set aside? It all depends on those circumstances.
What I would recommend is that you start a budget. So look at your income and your expenses. Make sure that you have enough surplus to go and put away. Because the first thing you need to do is pay off your debt. And the one thing I don't encourage you to do is to go and sacrifice your personal retirement policies for children, because that's not aiding in your long-term planning. So you need to look at your surplus and then start making sacrifices to your income.
Very difficult, because you don't actually know that newborn baby. You have no idea how healthy or ill that baby is going to be. In most cases, though, if you put that baby onto your medical aid immediately, the child is covered. There's no waiting period. So most medical schemes work like that. The moment the baby is born, you put them on your medical scheme, and they are then covered in terms of any kind of expenses that incur afterwards. That's an interesting question, because in South Africa we've always traditionally thought about university education. That has been the big thing to save for, to send my child to university. But what has happened over the last few years is that schooling has become so expensive. And for a lot of people actually need to start saving when that child is born, so that they can afford to send them in grade R or grade 1 to a good school, or to a school that is, to say, by no means cheap. So one needs to start saving from day one.
Now, if you look at the cost of education in South Africa, high schools cost as much as 30,000 Rand for public schooling. So if you add the cost of inflation, that is going to be very expensive. So it becomes very important that you start saving very early on.
To all you mamas and papas, join me again next week as we discuss post-baby weight loss, autism, and traveling with your family. See you next week.